When it comes to what your family eats and drinks, you know your choices matter. You're the expert because you know what fits your life. And getting it right starts with good information. That's why America's beverage companies are sharing more information about our ingredients at goodtoknowfacts.org. No spin, no judgments, just the facts straight from the experts for more than 140 beverage ingredients. Visit goodtoknowfacts.org.
I know you're doing your best to drive down deep within the organization to the franchisees to make sure that everything is consistent across the board, even on the deliverables of education.
I think it's so important, and I've always felt this way, even when as a public school teacher, administrator, that there's such inequitable access to education in our country, and particularly early childhood education, because there is no mandated curriculum, there is no mandated policies or procedures, there's no universal preschool. And I'm not advocating for a universal preschool or that every school should look exactly the same.
What is up, guys? How's it going? This is Sean French back at you with another episode of the podcast, The Determined Society. Today, guys, I have with me a special guest who just informed me, funnily enough, she's never been on a podcast before, and I find it very, very tough to believe because this woman has been a lifelong public and private school educator and entrepreneur, founder, and the owner of the Global Early Childhood Schools and Care Centers. She's a juggernaut in her field. And most recently, the Global Child has been franchised and is offering opportunities for others to join the TGC team as owners. I think that right there speaks enough volume for this woman. She's a dear friend of mine, and you're going to love her story today, guys. For those of you that are listening, her story of success did not come without adversity and a ton of trauma. But what she's done with her two boys is truly remarkable, and it should be an inspiration to every single parent and every single entrepreneur listening to the show. So without further ado, I want to welcome my good friend, Virginia Brown. How you doing, sweetheart?
Hey, Sean, how's it going? I'm so happy to be here. Thanks so much. It'll be fun.
I'm jacked to have you on here. I literally cannot believe you've never been on a podcast.
No, I don't know. It's not part of the sort of path I've taken in terms of being, marketing and showing what we do. So I'm looking forward to exploring this world a little bit further.
No, I think it's really cool because there's a lot of mediums within the podcast world that you're able to get your message out amongst the educational community. So that'd be kind of one cool action item that, we could look for, getting you on a little podcast tour. That might be a fun thing for you.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a lifelong learner. I love to learn, obviously. The more I can learn something, the more excited I get about it. So if anytime you want to mentor, I'm ready.
I love it. So, it's funny because you said lifelong learner. So I want to have fun with that. Mm-hmm. What is the most interesting off the cuff thing you've ever learned in your life?
Well, I don't know if this is interesting or off the cuff, but I want to tell you right now that I've never once taken a business class. My entire education and experience has been in education and curriculum and educational leadership. And so to be able to move into the world of business and business development and entrepreneurship has been so exciting and stimulating to me. And that's one of the big reasons why I wanted to franchise TGC at the Global Child, is because I honestly didn't even know that I needed a tax ID number to start a business. So I know that sounds crazy, but that's where I started. It was not the world I came from. And you don't often see business and education mesh or mix for whatever reason. It's almost like, people in the business world don't really understand the education world and vice versa. And so I feel like I can bring that unique perspective because I've worked so extensively now in both fields to anyone wanting to build their own business, but still has that passion and love for education and doesn't want to leave education and working with children, but at the same time wants to be their own business owner, make their own schedule, create. I use this hashtag a lot, create the life you want. You don't have to do a 9-to-5 job. You don't have to work in the public sector, in a school building, in a classroom every day to, to work in education and be passionate about it. So that's what I'm trying to do. And that's sort of my message.
Well, I love it because, I can tell you from the outside looking in, you know exactly what you're doing. And it's interesting to me because like you said, and again, I'm going to echo this about never taking a business class. A lot of entrepreneurs, successful entrepreneurs that you and I both know in common have never taken any business courses. And I'm wondering, I have my theories on why they're successful and why you've been successful, but what's your take on that? Do you think it's like because you're a self-starter? Are you intrinsically driven or just hungry for more? What is it?
Honestly, Sean, I think it's a combination of all those things. And I think some of those characteristics that you just listed are characteristics of entrepreneurs. I love to learn. So I know lifelong learner can sound a little cliche, but it's honestly true. When I'm put in a situation where it's something I don't know, I'm not afraid to ask questions. Another thing that I think has made me very successful in building the business is I am a big picture thinker. And so I try to surround myself with people who are really good at details, because I'll say, okay, this is what I want to do. And then, then I'll have my regional manager be like, but did you think of this? Did you think of this? Let's do it like this. And so I think, being really collaborative, building that team around you is essential to my success anyway. And kind of understanding and knowing your strengths and weaknesses and trying to find people that you can work with, that you love to work with, that have the same passion and energy as you. It's not always easy, but once you find that, it's like magic. So, and I've been lucky to build that type of team. So that's what I would say, for me anyway, has been really helpful and successful.
It's funny because everybody talks about, the classic cliche, teamwork makes the dream work. And it's a cliche because I think for a reason, but like, when you build something, and I'm experiencing myself as, we're experiencing growth in my business, and I'm sure you can attest to it, but building an all-star team around you is paramount to your success, because if you don't have people in your orbit, right, that have the same vision, not just for you, but for your company, the Global Child, then it doesn't work, right? So you have to be very, very careful in who you bring into your world, to be your partner in your business and in your franchises. So tell me how you've worked through that.
Yeah. So essentially, which we just talked a little bit about, strengths and weaknesses of different people. You cannot be an expert in everything, obviously, and you cannot think you're an expert in everything. I obviously have to have my attorney who does all my legal work, my accountant who does all my, all the accounting and all that type of my financials and all of that. And I can't, honestly, I can't do that. And recognizing what you can and can't do has also been a good learning process for me. I think a lot of times when you own a small business, the reason why you can't really level it up or expand it in a way you would want to is because you feel like you have to be there 100% of the time because you don't necessarily trust the people around you. So for me, trust has been a really big piece. And I think because I worked so long in the public schools as an elementary principal and then a district office administrator, I was able to really learn and kind of refine the process of hiring. I think I'm a good read of people a lot of times, not always. We've had plenty of times where the person just has not worked out and it was not a fit. But because I own 5 company locations, about to be 6, one of them being in Florida, I obviously am not there at all the schools all the time. So I really work on the other side. I enjoy visiting, I enjoy being there, but I'm not, hands-on into the day-to-day operations. I oversee the big picture. So my site directors, my assistant site directors, my curriculum director, my regional manager, they're the people that I trust. And I'm trusting them with my business and my life. And it's a business that you need a lot of trust in. You can't have anyone working in your schools and your classrooms. It's not the same as, not that there's anything wrong with this, but it's not the same as like making a sandwich where there's a prescription or a recipe every single day. So,
first of all, I love when you visit too, or you come to Florida, because I get to see you and we get to have coffee together and talk about all these amazing locations and franchises that you're building and, converting that those are always fun. But it's interesting because you're talking about the team that you're building. You have to trust, and you can't be everywhere at the same time. And dude, to your point, it's super important because when you build that culture, right? Mm-hmm. That culture, that corporate culture, that has to transcend down to every single franchise, right? Absolutely. Every single franchisee has to adopt that culture, because that's the way that TGC is going. What are some of the checks and balances that you have to make sure that culture is consistent across the board?
Yeah, so that's been part of the franchising process, Sean. We actually have just recently developed a proprietary curriculum. So that obviously, with my background in education and curriculum development, I was involved in. But again, I also kind of sourced it out with some experts that are working right now specifically in early childhood curriculum. So that's one of the things, is to help us develop consistency on what we're teaching our kids and what we want our kids to know and be able to do when we send them off to kindergarten. The other thing is too, we have lots of policies and procedures, which again, I'm not always a detail person. So typically I will have someone help me write those, and then I'll review them. So I'm very knowledgeable about them. So that can develop consistency too. And again, similar to my company employees and the people that I work with in terms of my administrative team, we also do vet the people that we choose to franchise with very carefully. And there's a process that we've developed to go through that to make sure they're the type of people that we want carrying on our mission in all parts of the country eventually. So I think that's the way we've done that, is just really try to develop some consistency in terms of policies, operations, educational delivery, and instruction. And then there's a training process that every franchisee would go through, where we would teach them, my ideas and missions around hiring, around what TGC should be, the culture that we're trying to create for young children. So yeah, through that training protocol or process, they really learn what we are about and who I am too. That's the other thing too that I think that's really important, is I want to be a face of the company as much as I can't be every place, all the time. I want people to know who I am, what's important to me. It's similar to, you don't want to buy something that you have never even seen the owner of the company and don't understand what they're about or what their mission is. So that's really important to me, developing relationships with people, helping people understand who I am and why they would want to either be part of our team and or want their child to be a part of TGC.
It's really interesting. You talk about the pre-qualification checks and balances that you have in order to go through the process to see who you guys are going to bring over, under the umbrella of the Global Child. I think the one thing that you said that stuck out to me was delivery.
Yeah.
The deliverables. The things that I've noticed in childcare and in school and education here in Florida is that a lot of times the curriculum could be great on paper. And when you go through the tours, right, and everything seems like, oh my God, this is the best place ever. And they have cooks on site, and then your kids come home starving, right? And you see a picture they send you through some app. And I'm not telling you this is the place where my daughter's at right now, because she's well taken care of. But there was a place prior to that they pride themselves on having such great food for the kids, and the breakfast. And I'm not shitting you. Okay. This breakfast was it was a head of a banana and 5 Cheerios. And my daughter was coming home just pissed off at the world. We couldn't figure it out. I'm like, oh my God, this is horrible, until we saw a picture.
She was hangry.
She was so hangry. And like lunch, it was like 2 slices of ham. And listen, it was like $280 a week for this place. Yeah. We pay much more now. I'm not going to say it on air, but you know where my daughter's at because we're friends,
Right. Of course,
and it's a great place. I love it. So if anybody from that place is listening, I love you guys. You're amazing. You take care of my family. You take care of my daughter. I'm cool.
Of course. Yeah.
But I think the biggest issue is the deliverables, right? And, the thing that I love about you, because I've known you for a while, is I know you're doing your best to drive down deep within the organization to the franchisees to make sure that everything is consistent across the board, even on the deliverables of education.
Yeah. And that's definitely an issue. And I guess that's another thing that I do like to talk about too. And I just recently did a post on my Instagram regarding it or about it, is, I think it's so important. And I've always felt this way, even when as a public school teacher, administrator, that there's such inequitable access to education in our country, and particularly early childhood education, because there is no mandated curriculum, there is no mandated policies or procedures, there's no universal preschool. I'm not advocating for a universal preschool or that, every school should look exactly the same, but there's not sort of those checks and balances, for lack of a better word. I know we were talking about that in a different context, but because of that, my goal is really to be able to provide, in whatever way it is, whether it's at TGC, or at another place, some sort of consistency so that we know that all children have access to good quality early childhood education. Because, obviously it's just research-based and common sense too. When children have good foundational starts, they're more successful in kindergarten, they're more successful in high school, they have less attention and focus issues, they're socially and emotionally more developed and do better. So that's one of my missions, and another reason why I wanted to franchise. When my late husband and I started this company back in 2011, I had not necessarily thought of franchising, but I always knew I wanted to have one more location. And I always recognized, and it bothered me that there were such inequitables there's just not access for all children to be receiving the same type of experience. And that really bothers me. And so that's something that, that I will continue as a mission and a reason why.
I love it. I'll tell you something, as a parent too, if your franchisees can always hold on to your mission and be happy where their feet are and be engaged with the kids and be engaged in the educational process of the kids, right? Because a lot of times you can tell when a teacher doesn't want to be there, especially in the daycare setting.
Yeah.
That right there to me is like, that's, you can tell when, someone's like at an engagement of 0, right? Right. So I think it's super important, for the kids to have somebody that's engaged with them. And I feel like also too, for the parents, that's super important, right? Because, you're dropping your kid off there every day. So it's an issue.
Yeah, it is. And so just to give you a little bit more context, or give our listeners today a little bit more context, when my late husband and I first started this school, my goal was, I was an elementary principal at the time. There were some things that I really loved that were being done in the elementary school. It was a K through 2 school, so still, early childhood education. Not preschool, but very young children. And at the time, our 2 sons were very young. And I had gone over to China and I'd seen some of the hungriness of their children, the eagerness of their children to understand visitors and people from different cultures and their desire to learn English. And that was one of the reasons why I started the program, because I wanted my children to have this type of experience, or a certain type of early childhood experience. And it was very important to us that, we provided this for our own children, and to know that they were going to have these types of exposures. And so now, 10 years later, with 5 company locations and now franchising, that continues to be my mission, and also to carry that through for my late husband too, because it was important to him too. So, it started off of being something that I wanted to do for my children to have, but then enabling to have as many children as possible have those types of experiences became really important to me.
I'm glad you started mentioning that, because that was something that we definitely wanted to work in here. Your late husband, for those of you that don't know, Virginia's husband passed away. What year was it?
In 2015, he actually passed away quite suddenly with complications from cystic fibrosis.
Yeah. So it was a sudden death, leaving her and her 2 sons without a father. And this woman literally picked herself up, picked her children up on her back, and created this dynasty that she's building with her educational company. Now, talk to me a little bit about that, because a lot of people, when they face adversity like that in their whole world, right? Your spouse, although we fight with our spouses, and it gets contentious at times, but truly, like, without those individuals, like when they pass, it's a different feeling. It's like, I don't ever want to understand. I want to just be empathetic as possible, because, I love you, but I never want to feel that. Right. Walk the listeners through that process, how you picked everything back up, and despite of possibly feeling broken and hurt, and created this 5-company location and now franchising, because this is why this is important. This is why I want to really dig into this specific piece right here, because the problem with society right now in America is that the moment they face any type of trauma or they're hurt, whatever it is, someone pisses them off, they want to take their ball and go home, and they don't want to play anymore. Mm-hmm. So I think my listeners and Americans seriously get something out of what you're about to say. Yeah.
Yeah. So my son and I were leaving for Argentina because he was playing soccer internationally at the time. And my husband passed away during the night that night from, obviously, I just had complications of cystic fibrosis. He became septic. And so, I mean, at first, obviously, this is a bit of process, Sean. So I don't want to diminish anyone who's had trauma, sure, or to this extent of trauma that is, or I don't want to diminish their experience or say it's easy, because it has not been easy. It has been incredibly trying, and we've had, some pretty dark days at times.
Sure.
But the one thing I knew, or the one thing I came to know very quickly, was that there was no way that I wanted my children to ever, like you just talked about, to ever feel like, that this was some sort of excuse for not showing up every day, for not like putting their best foot forward, for not achieving the highest potential they possibly could. And so we had a very strong support system, and that's great. And some people don't have that, and I'm so grateful for that. But at the end of the day, you go home to, just half of a family, and it's not that it's a negative thing. It's not, some people have said to me, well, you shouldn't put out there, that you're a widow. It might bother your children. But I've actually tried to embrace being a single mom, mm-hmm, and what I've overcome, as your brand name, The Determined Society. I was determined that my kids were going to have the best possible life that I could provide for them. And, I wanted to be, but in saying all that, there were definitely times when I wasn't able to be present. I would have physically been there, but, emotionally, that was not a good day. Or, obviously they've seen me cry. We've had good and bad days. But at the end of it, and, some people may fault me for saying this, but I'm just going to say it because it's been my experience, and this is what I can say. You learn so much from what you go through. Mm-hmm. It's all about how you're going to deal with it. And I know that's all what everyone's talking about around self-love and self-help right now. You have you have two choices. You can decide that, you're going to quit. You're going to, only be able to do so much because of your circumstances. And honestly, like, if I can help anyone at all understand that that's not true, or has not been my experience, you can do anything you decide you want to do. It just depends on how much effort you're going to put into it and how many times you're willing to pick yourself back up. I decided that working in the public school, for many, many years, I worked full-time as an administrator in the public schools and was running this business because my husband and I had started it together. And, did I work long days? Yeah. Were there many times that my son got out of school at 2:15 and I couldn't pick him up until 4:00. And, I was juggling that. And there were days, did he have to stand outside in the wintertime for like an hour while waiting for me? I mean, he wasn't in harm or anything, obviously. And, sometimes I'm sure he could have sat in the school, but he wanted to sit there by himself. I mean, he wanted to sit there. But anyway, I decided I wanted to create a life that I wanted. And I wanted my boys to see that. I wanted them, to see and know that they can do it too. And whatever happened to us, we would get through it. So that was one of the driving forces that kept me going every single day. And from that trauma, I was just going to say, you learn something from every experience you go through. And honestly, sometimes I don't want to say things work out the way they're supposed to work out, because that feels too sort of harsh and raw.
Right.
But I've had other opportunities that I would have never had probably if this hadn't happened to us. My children have had other opportunities, better or worse, no, but different opportunities that we've learned and grown from, and that have helped us heal. We've met there's new people in our lives. We've explored different parts of the country. There's been a lot of things that have happened that have been that we see as opportunities. Mm-hmm. And I'm trying to role model that for them and teach them these are our circumstances, but we're going to create opportunities and a new life out of it. So that's what I decided to do.
I love that. And I just want to stop real quick and just acknowledge you for doing that for your kids, for your two boys, because, I'm connected with you obviously on a personal level. So I see the posts of you guys on amazing vacations. I know your son's going to play Division I soccer, right? I know your youngest son is going to a very good school, is going to do the same thing. And to me, like, I always think of trauma as, and I don't want to ever discount it either. So I for those of you that are pissed off how I started this particular segment of the conversation, understand this. I think trauma is something that's real, something that happens to us. And out of that trauma can come something so special. A person who understands how to stay determined, driven, and disciplined and come out on the other end freaking unstoppable. And I think there's merit to that. People are getting awards for that, right? People are establishing themselves as a global brand, as people of influence and entrepreneurs of influence. And yet there's another side of the coin to where you can make the choice of not doing anything and sitting in that trauma the rest of your life and never becoming the individual that God intended you to be.
Right.
For me, that scares the absolute hell out of me. Like, I do not want to meet God when I'm gone and be like, hey, who's that guy you're walking with? Like, oh, dude, that's who you were supposed to be, bro. Like, nah, like I can't do that. And so like, I firmly believe that what you've done in that circumstance is build something so special and a true testament to who you are as a person. I think that many people can learn from that. And as a parent, your kids, they might not see this way now because, one's early teens and one's, latter part of their teens. But when they're in their 30s, they're going to look at you and you're going to be their superhero. So every parent listening right now, or people that are aspiring to be a parent, this part isn't about entrepreneurship or sales or being a peak performer. This is about how you handle yourself in the midst of trauma and how you overcome it. Like, you have a choice. You can be the person, the superhero your kids look up and aspire to be in the world, or they can look up to somebody else.
It's true. And honestly, like, Jack wants to work for the company someday. He's going into business, entrepreneurship. He wants to work for the business. So I know that they already do, respect what I'm trying to build and understand it. But again, and I just want to just step back one more second though, Sean. I just want to reiterate what you were saying. This is not to diminish in any way what people go through. It's a process. And I'm 10 years out, 7 years out, but it's been a process. And there's been, I said this before, but, I understand that. And if any way I can help other people going through that type of thing, I would love to do that. That would be like, that would really make me feel as though I was influential. But yes, being a role model to our kids is essential. And I know you talk about that too, Sean, a lot, that, your mission and your why, and the why you are so determined and consistent, like getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning.
I'm exhausted.
Which I can't do, what I wish I did, is so important because, and do we make the right decision every day? Are we perfect?
Hell no.
Oh my God, no. Like, there's been times when my kids are kind of looking at me, shaking their head, being like, and, I've had to apologize for them for whatever reason. We're none of us are perfect, but if you can get up every day and, do the best you think you are able to do and just keep on going, keep on pushing forward. And if you can stay consistent and you're determined, and, one of my top administrators in my company, we always say, we will not fail. Like, there's no way we will fail. There's two choices. We can, is there going to be adversity, or is there going to be challenges, or is it going to be like, oh God, I can't believe that happened. And are you really upset about it? And like, are your financials not going to look the way they want to because you just lost a director or a key employee or whatever? Yeah. But
it's going to happen, man.
You just rebuild. We're not going to fail. So that's not a choice. So you just rebuild. And that also, I think that's taught the trauma that I went through losing my husband. I think has also taught me that we don't fail. You just rebuild.
Yeah. I think that's important when you get into entrepreneurship or anything like this. It's there's there's no plan B. And I've said this before, and people have misinterpreted it and slid into my DMs aggressive as fuck. I'll be like, what do you mean there's no plan B? Like, plan B isn't for quitters. Like, what about, you're supposed to have multiple streams of income on the guys. You're not understanding what I'm saying. Yeah. What I'm saying is there's no plan B, meaning my business and your business is going to be successful, period. In the story, there's no like, well, if it doesn't work, then I have this. Like, right. No. This is like Hernan Cortez and the boats. We're burning the ships, right? We're leaving no method retreat. The only way we're going home is in their freaking boats. And that's what entrepreneurship is. I think that's what anything is that you're trying to achieve. I don't care if you're shooting to be a number one draft pick for the NBA.
Right.
You can't think that there's another option.
Right. You're not going to then just decide to play rec.
Yeah, exactly. So listen, I want to land the plane because if I could sit here all day with you and chat, I would. This is incredible. And now I do want to acknowledge you because you're an absolute natural at this. Like, you need to be on more shows because I have no doubt in my mind that some people in education are going to be listening to this and they're going to wonder how in the world can they look into being a franchise owner for the Global Child. So let me ask you a quick question. In effort to support you and my listeners to support you, if they are interested in two things, one, where are the locations right now so that if they live in those areas, they can look into your school for their children? And then two, how are some of the ways that they can get in touch with you so they can possibly become a franchise owner?
Yeah, great. So really simple. The best resource to get in touch with me really quickly is on our website. All the information, all the preliminary information about franchising is also on our website. It's www.globalchildschool.com. So that's simple. I'm on Instagram as Virginia Gonthier Brown, and we also have a Global Child Instagram account. We have 4 company locations right now, currently in Connecticut. I live just north of Boston right now, but we're opening a new location in Estero. We don't have an exact date yet, but it's basically done. I'm really, really excited, and we'll do a big announcement as soon as it's completely finalized. We're working on the application right now for licensing because when you do change ownership. And then we have another location too, which I will disclose very soon, but it's still kind of in the works. And I always hesitate to say it before it's done because I feel like it jinxes it.
I feel you on that one.
So so our goal right now is we're franchising right now in Connecticut. We have a brand new, and I'll be announcing that probably pretty soon too, in Connecticut, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, and Florida. I had to kind of pick some locations. Cool. I'm going to be spending a lot of time in Florida in the next 6 months to a year because of the new schools and trying to get them up and running. And I just feel like Florida is a great place to be right now. Really franchise friendly and great for small businesses. And my mom's from the South, in case you can't tell. I kind of have like the little Southern vibe to me. So I'm looking forward to getting down there more and spending more time in the South. So
that's awesome. I can't wait. And guys, don't worry about remembering the website link, her Instagram handle for the business, or her personal Instagram. What I'm going to do is when I do the show notes, I'll include that. So guys, all you gotta do is go to the show notes. It's there, and then go find her.
You can always Google the Global Child too. Yeah. And then, anytime, even if you want to talk about trauma, my husband, entrepreneurship, obviously I like to talk, franchising, send me an email, send me a DM. I want to be inspirational in some way.
Well, you are. You absolutely are. I think the listeners probably got a lot out of what we spoke about today. So kind of the last question I have for you. What can I do to best support you?
Well, you and I have talked a lot about ideas, and I think we'll continue to brainstorm those things. Obviously, I'd love like a coffee buddy, and I can't wait to meet your wife when I get down to Florida in your area. I think too, maybe just helping me spread the word through ways like this. And again, I love to learn. So the more I can be a part of either podcast or publications or, some of the work that you're doing. All that, great. And, obviously just being my friend is awesome too.
Hey, you definitely got to get in some press though, for sure.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I do know some TV personalities here. So when it comes time and you're ready to rock and roll with that Estero location, maybe I can get my contacts there to do a segment on you. That'd be kind of cool.
That would be great. That'd be fabulous. That'd be fun.
That'd be awesome. That'd be really cool. So with that being said, guys, listen, thank you so much for listening today. Virginia is an absolute wonderful human being and amazing mother and a successful entrepreneur. And more than anything though, guys, she cares about human beings. And that's why she's my friend, is because she gives a shit about other people in such a genuine way. And there's a lot of people out there that talk about how they care about people, but it's typically easy to see through that. And, she's not one of those people. She's an amazing person. So if you got something out of this show, please share it out. Pay it forward, spread the word, not just about this podcast, but about the global child. We'd really appreciate it. If we said something that made you laugh, share it. If we said something to piss you off, share it too. But more than anything, if we sucked, don't share it. You don't have to, but I know we didn't suck. So until next time, guys.
It's my first try.
Yes, hey, it was a rough draft, and I think it was really, really good. It's going to come out great. And anyway, guys, until next time, I'll talk to you soon. Dude.
Thanks, Sean.